Nigeria has displaced South Africa as the continent's economic powerhouse, with growth expected to reach 8% a year over the next 20 years and a population of nearly 180 million. It is a market that simply cannot be ignored. That said, a number of South African companies have lost substantial amounts of money in Nigeria. Examples: Telkom and more recently Tiger Brands. Joining us to discuss the outlook for Nigeria is Dianna, Chief Executive at Africa at Work. Well, thank you so much for making the time to join us, Dianna. I was speaking with Jana just before the break, and we were talking about the African Competitiveness report. South Africa surprised to the upside, still sitting in the top 50. I think they came in at 49. Nigeria, on the other hand, and I've asked my colleagues over Nigeria if they were surprised, they came in ranked 124 out of 140 countries. Are you surprised maybe at this ranking?
I think it's a little on the low side because there have been quite significant improvements basically through technology and the modernizing of the way companies work in Nigeria. But I think what really holds Nigeria back is the way government works, anything related to government agencies, state governments, local municipalities, and so on. I think that is really where the big drag is. And also you've got a huge informal markets in Nigeria, so I think more than sort of 70–80%, pick a number, is informal, and so very hard to capture that. So you've got a small core of formal sector, relatively small to the whole economy, and I think while you're seeing improvements there, I guess the competitiveness report monitors a whole range of other things. Yes. And I think you would definitely see it very much falling back on the state side.
A lot has changed in Nigeria over the past decade. I mean, they've overtaken South Africa as the biggest economy on the continent. You've been on the ground and you have an understanding of how this particular country and the market works. What changes have you seen over the past 10 years that definitely say these were big changes for the Nigerian economy?
I think there's no doubting the effect that mobile phones have had on that economy. And also technology generally, although that's more recently, it's really sort of coming into its own. There are a number of Nigerian companies that are now, technology companies that are now expanding across borders into East Africa, other parts of West Africa. You know, these are the new kind of Pan-African players I see coming through. Nigeria's really adopted digital everything in a big way, and I think that's really the way a lot of the problems that exist and the dysfunction and the poor structures, if you like, in the Nigerian economy will be addressed through technology, and there'll be that leapfrog effect, I suspect, over time. But I think the growth of Nigerian companies is a big factor. I think the governance has not improved that much. I think that was what we've seen with the election of the opposition in Nigeria. People want change, and they want significant change. And at the basis of that change is tackling corruption, which has had an incredibly corrosive effect on the Nigerian economy and the potential of it to grow. We know it's the biggest economy in Africa, but really that is just one measure. And I think that we're going to see a lot of things changing if the government is able to, the current new government is able to tackle that. I think you will really see Nigeria's potential coming into its own, particularly in areas like the power sector. Mm-hmm. If the lights come on in a big way, then I think you're really seeing the takeoff. You will see the takeoff of the Nigerian economy.
Why have we seen a lot of these South African companies struggling in Nigeria? I mean, I mentioned Telkom, Tiger Brands in terms of the Dangote flour mills. They've had issues there, but there are a couple of other ones. Nampak, they've mentioned that they've had issues in the Nigerian space. What is it that South African companies aren't getting right, or what is it about that market that seems to be hard to crack?
My view is that South African companies are perhaps not doing their homework properly, and that always sounds like such a simple thing. I think people make decisions based on, I don't know about Tiger Brands, but I think they were expecting a lot of reward, if you like, out of the Dangote name. Dangote is something of a superstar, if you like, in Nigeria. But the business model is significantly different to Tiger Brands and to the more Western model that we have in South Africa. Certainly with Telkom, they went into the wrong, they took bad advice, they went into the wrong technology, didn't understand the market that well, and I think people don't always find ways to tackle the considerable challenges of doing business there, which is what sometimes gives the local companies a competitive advantage, because they understand how to deal with the problems in that market. And the South Africans, many people have succeeded. I think it's unfair to pick, albeit large companies that have failed or have had tough times in Nigeria. But there are many companies who've done well, a lot of them below the radar. So I think it's very much still a market for South African companies to look at.
Dianna, there's been some nervousness around emerging markets and frontier markets, but one of the things has been related to the fall in the commodity price, so the price of oil, but also China and those concerns. Given all of these macroeconomic factors, can we still say that the investment case for Nigeria is pretty much still there? I mean, are they still the shining star? If you look at the African investment case, would you not be maybe swayed to put your money elsewhere that may seem a lot safer?
At the moment, oil producers are not the flavour of the month, I think for obvious reasons. Nigeria has taken a big hit on the low oil price, partly because not so much the economy is not diversifying, it certainly is starting to diversify quite markedly, but what's not happening is that there's no new revenue streams. The country exports very little besides oil, so they're very much dependent on oil for foreign exchange for revenues, and that is what precipitated the current crisis, which is quite severe. And there's also huge leakages in that economy, a lot of special deals done for business, a lot of smuggling, corruption again, and so on. So a lot of money is leaking out of that economy that could be captured if corruption is tackled. And yes, I think Nigeria will always be a play. I think you can't ignore it, the size of the market. It does depend on what sector you're in. I think you're seeing inflation going up, you're seeing foreign currency crisis, problems at the ports and so on. So incomes are going to decline, and that has a knock-on effect on consumer goods industries. So the investment, you're seeing a couple of multinational, international companies expanding their presence in Nigeria, even though the economy is in a fairly dire position right now. And that really is a play for the future. People are looking sort of longer term and at that market. And as the competition grows, that is probably a sensible way to do it. It will remain Africa's largest economy for some time to come, and with the improvements, it will certainly be much more dynamic than it perhaps is now.
Dianna, when Nigeria officially became the largest economy on the African continent, it was said to be taken up by South Africa with a sour face. Should we still be concerned that Nigeria is the bigger economy? I mean, does Nigeria still pose a significant threat to South Africa's growth story?
I think there's definitely room for more than one economy as an investment case on the continent. They're very different kinds of economies. South Africa, much more structured, more sophisticated. Nigeria with a huge amount of potential, much larger potential than South Africa. And getting a couple of things right will really send that economy on its way, assuming some kind of rise in the oil price in the short term. I don't see it as a threat, really. I think the bigger issue for me was the fact that South Africa, the reaction to Nigeria becoming the biggest economy was really the surprise in South Africa, and that is partly a kind of an arrogance about who we are, our place on the continent.
The gateway.
Yeah, the gateway, that there was just an assumption that we would always just be that. And the Nigeria story has shaken up that some of those ideas, and people are having to readjust to the fact that actually there's other big economies starting to really grow, and that will certainly be competition for investment in years to come, particularly because there is so much low-hanging fruit, whereas South Africa really doesn't have as much low-hanging fruit, if you like. I think you're also going to see African investors coming into South Africa, which is, at the moment, is extremely minimal presence.
Dianna, just on a final note there, you speak about other investors coming into different parts of Africa. What are some of the common questions that you get asked that we may think might be common knowledge because we are based here on the African continent that they don't necessarily know about?
The big issue for people is risk, and when we talk about risk, you're not necessarily talking about security or political turmoil as much as regulatory risk, the failure to anticipate sort of swift changes of policy pertaining to planning and the future sort of growth of companies, and also whether the playing field is level. If you're a foreigner, are you competing with undisclosed interests from local players who have a hotline to policymakers? So I think risk remains an issue. It's just the nature of that risk that people are worried about is changing more from political to economic risk.
Dianna, thank you so much for coming in and telling us about the landscape, not just in Nigeria, but for the rest of the African continent. But it's good to see that there's still very much a lot of opportunity there. Just got to get our regulation policies in order. Thanks so much to Dianna Games, and she joined us today telling us about those prospects.